Hi, I'm Mary Cross, and welcome to the Building Bliss podcast. Very excited for this week's guest. We've got Jodie Salt, and I've just been doing some snooping on Jodie, and I've just read a brilliant tagline on her LinkedIn that says she's helping women and teen girls smash the glass ceiling, develop their credibility, know what they want, and make it happen, which I think is a pretty good motif for life to have. So welcome, Jodie.
Thank you for having me, Mary. I worried then. I got worried about what you were going to say. I thought, oh, what have I written? What have I written somewhere now? But yes, wholeheartedly, that is the perfect
Yeah.
motto.
And so you're an executive coach and you've specialised in leadership development. And more recently, you're the founder and curator of the Womanifest Festival, which I no doubt we'll get into. So do you want to give us a bit of an introduction of
Yeah,
how you've found yourself to this point of life?
yeah, sure. I was a corporate bunny, Mary, for many, many years. So kind of grew up in big blue chip organisations. I was 18. I started working a call centre just for me beer money, really, back then. And I had an amazing boss at that time who really believed in me and could see my potential. And she was like, you'd be great at training other people. And so I'd kind of been reluctantly was like, oh, okay, then go on, I'll do a little bit of that. Anyway, my career accelerated rather rapidly into learning and development. It was never the grand plan. It's just how it panned out. And I was somebody who, I was in a leadership and management position by the time I was 20, which looking back now, I think, which fool gave me that job? I know which fool it was. One day I will have a conversation with that person. But at the time, I thought I was the bee's knees. I thought I was fabulous. Thought I was brilliant. Anyway, I fumbled my way through. But after probably about 8 or 9 years of managing other people and starting my own family, I then had two young girls. I decided I needed to focus on myself for a bit. And that's when I kind of made the shift over into leadership development and I qualified as an executive coach because then I kind of moved away from the bit of managing other people and then could focus properly on the learning, which is the bit that you kind of like really, really, really passionate about. But then I had my third daughter a few years down the line. And at the same time, my job went from being a UK job to a pan-European job. So 2 kids to 3 kids, UK to Europe. And I just thought, I can't manage all of this. As much as at the time, I loved the idea of being superwoman and being able to do it all back then. I knew I couldn't. And that's when I decided to, drop the corporate rat race, go freelance. And that's when I really got invested in working with women and girls, helping women to smash the glass ceiling from a coaching perspective. And then that's just evolved really. I've, wanted to do more fun things, more experiential things. And that's where, I had this little dream, when you walk in the dog or whatever and you have a little daydream and I don't know how it happened. I just gradually over time built up this dream in my head about having this event that was all about, empowering women and teenage girls. I think it was born out of my kids going to CBeebies live because they used to love watching CBeebies on the telly. But when you actually took them to meet Mr. Tumble or Mr. Maker, it was like, oh my God, they loved it. And we were in this online world where we were running loads of sessions and stuff online and everyone was meeting and networking online. But actually to do it in real life made it so much more impactful. And then that's where the festival was born, really, which now is such a huge part of my life. My absolute passion project because it's an event for a weekend that's a festival unlike no other. And it really does change people's lives for the better. And so that gives me great purpose and meaning in life and makes me happy.
Great. So can I ask you then, because obviously Womanifest, it's an unusual name, and I know we've had this discussion a lot, and I know you get it a lot. How do you pronounce it? But what does it mean? And I guess how did you come up with it to start with? And then what does it mean to you?
I saw it on a t-shirt once. I'd love to say it was like some like amazing kind of inspired like message from the universe. But no, I saw it on a t-shirt once and I thought, oh my God, that's a brilliant word. So a lot of people automatically think it's a, festival of women, because it's Womanifest, woman and festival together. Kind of is, but it does have its own definition and its own meaning. So it's kind of a spin on manifesting. I've never been a particularly woo-woo spiritual person, although I'm getting more and more into it as the years go by. But Womanifest actually means when we use our innate feminine energy to make stuff happen. So notice that it's about feminine energy. It's not actually that you have to be a woman, so you don't have to be female to have feminine energy. But it is about how when people use their feminine energy to make stuff happen, because we live in a really male coded, like masculine energy world, and this has only really become obviously apparent to me in the last 5 or 6 years, because you just grew up in it. So that's what was normal. When actually, all of our societal infrastructures, our businesses, our cities, our towns, our governments, they've all been built by men for men, and it's very masculine in its energy. And I'd like to see some balance in the world where there's as much feminine energy running this planet as there is masculine energy.
Yeah, we definitely need that, because I think it says on your Womanifest website that the recent UN report said it could take 300 years to get equality, which is a really depressing figure.
I mean, come on. Isn't it? That means I won't get to see it. I won't get to see equity and equality. That makes me really sad. However, I would like to, go to my grave knowing that I put a decent dent in it.
You're definitely doing your bit to help, achieve that objective with what you're doing, especially because you focus as well on teen girls as well, don't you, as well as women?
Yeah, definitely. Well, as a mum to 3 teenage girls, for if no other reason than that, it matters to me that I feel like I give them a better world to grow up in than I had. And I think all teen girls deserve a little bit of that.
They definitely need that. It's probably something we'll come on to as we discuss more. So, we'll dive into the questions then. So, if you haven't been on before, the Building Bliss podcast is founded on the 5 pillars of bliss, which are bravery, laughter, inspiration, spark, and success. And I know you've got your own 5 pillars for Womanifest, so we might come on to those.
Yeah, I do actually, yeah.
So, starting with the first one then, B for bravery. Can you pick out a moment that's the bravest in your life?
Oh, the bravest moment in my life. You know what? There's probably been a few, but one that really does spring to mind was, taking the leap to work for myself.
Yeah.
That felt huge. That felt significant. What I had perceived to be the safety of an employed role, because that's what had been brought up by my parents to believe, that, get yourself a good job and then you'll have security, and actually deep down, I'd dreamt of, having the freedom. For me, freedom is really important to me. And having that secure job never gave me freedom. So biting the bullet and taking the leap, and it was almost like a bit of blind faith, to leave a well-paid, what was perceived to be a secure job, to go and work for myself, felt really, really significant. That felt like it took a lot of guts to do that. It scared the absolute life out of me. But the liberation that came on the other side of that, when you have that moment of realization that actually this feels more secure. This is more secure because I'm now in control of my own destiny. I actually get to decide. I get to choose. I get to do more work if I need to do more work, or less work if I need to, if I don't need to do as much. It wasn't as risky as I believed it was. I felt like I'd been duped a bit into thinking that having an employed job was the safest thing I could do. And actually, I wasn't driven by safety. I was driven by variety and freedom and adventure. So learning that about myself felt big. But yeah, that took me digging deep to have the guts and be brave enough to do that. But the best thing that I ever
Yeah.
did.
And did you have people around you going, "What are you doing? This is nuts," or was everyone quite supportive?
Yeah. No, not really. Not really anybody that was very supportive. Everyone was nervous. My husband was nervous. My dad thought I was absolutely bonkers because that we were just coming out of the back of the the recession, the credit crunchy
Oh yeah.
years, and he was like, what do you think you're doing, setting up a business in a recession? And I was like, well, actually, Dad, another school of thought is that that's the best time to set up a business. People who believe in the art of opportunity and the art of the possible are the people that make things happen out of a recession. They're the people who get this thing out of a recession, But so no, I didn't have a lot of encouragement at all. Everyone thought I was absolutely bonkers and it was the silliest thing I could ever do. And that made it 10 times tougher. But I've kind of always been that person that actually, if you tell me I can't do something, you just drive me closer towards it. I'll be like, right then, I'll show you with bells and whistles on it. I'll do it twice and I'll take pictures while I'm at it. So it's almost like it backfired because it just gave me more fire in my belly to make
Yeah.
it work.
And I think, see, I was brought up in a family business so I've always had that working for
Yeah.
yourself ethic. But I did go off and get a job myself, and now I've pretty much worked for myself for the last 15 years effectively. And it's that freedom. And I think
Yeah.
it's interesting though, isn't it, when it is your business that you're quite happy to put in the extra work and the hours that you need to make it succeed because it's what you're really passionate about.
Yeah, totally. It's your baby, isn't it? You've birthed
Yeah.
it in effect, so it matters 10 times more to
Yeah.
you. Yeah,
And I think
absolutely.
now times are completely different, where is that everyone is being actively encouraged to set up their own business and stride out, aren't they?
A lot more. Yeah, a lot more for sure. Yeah, it feels a lot more entrepreneurial and creative. I think it's because we've kind of, how the eras change. So, you go back into the kind of 50s and 60s and, it was a very what you call it, kind of like an industrial era. People were paid for their manual
Yeah.
labor. A lot of people, it was about how using your limbs, about your dexterity, all of that kind of stuff. Then the kind of sort of 80s, back into the 70s and 80s came. We kind of moved into a knowledge worker era. So, it was all about when we were younger, we were encouraged to be doctors, lawyers, dentists. It was about knowledgeable
Mm.
professions, go to uni and learn how to do those things. And then now I think we're moving into a learning era where actually we earn money by problem solving. So we don't really need our fingers and toes and muscles anymore to do a lot of things. But we're paid not for knowing stuff, we're paid for figuring stuff out. And so I think that lends itself so much more to, you know, careers that are innovative and creative and that kind of stuff. Hence why I think we're getting more entrepreneurs and people wanting to create their own businesses and set up
Yeah, and I think we
themselves.
need that, as we just touched on before I pressed record about the education system, that it's not really geared towards fostering that, is it? Anybody who's got creativity or an entrepreneurial skill, it's not fostered because it's all just churn and learn.
Yeah, yeah. In fact, I'd go as far as to say that gets
Mm.
quashed. Never mind, it doesn't get encouraged. You're almost criticised for having that kind of mindset and attitude to life. If that's the case, like, don't be so silly. Get your head out the clouds. People don't do things like that. Get yourself a proper job. go to university or go to college and learn X, Y, or Z, be a plumber, be a tiler, be a doctor, be a nurse. And it's like, all right, there's still some of that that's needed in the world, but it's not the be all and end all anymore,
No,
is
or it's
it?
even that thing of going, oh
So,
well, you'll never make a living out of being, a TikTok person, and then you look at people who've got, TikTok, the YouTube podcasts, who are multimillionaires by the time they're 23 or something. So
yeah. Now, clearly it's not for
no,
everybody, but it is possible. It is possible. It's a line of work these days, isn't
yeah,
it? So,
definitely.
yeah.
So moving on then to becoming braver. Obviously, you took the decision to launch the festival, and that must have taken a lot of bravery to actually decide to press the button on it.
It's funny you say that. And I see how that would be the natural kind of perception of it. I don't know if it was just absolute naivety or stupidity, if I'm honest, but it didn't feel like that was a brave
Right.
decision. It just felt exciting and fun. And, oh, well, should we have a little go of this and see what this turns
Yeah.
into? So I'd love to sit here and say, it was a big, brave decision, a big, brave, bold decision, but it wasn't. It was just probably a really silly one that kind of worked out in the end, but it's not been an easy one. It wasn't successful from the outset. I've made a lot of mistakes, and it's been really, really hard. But yeah, I can't really attribute any bravery to doing that. Just blind
Well,
stupidity, really.
sometimes, they say there's a fine line between genius and insanity, don't they? And I think sometimes our best ideas come from
I'll take
those,
that.
like, just do it. Like, I've got that sort of attitude at the moment. If an opportunity arises, just like, yeah, sod it, I'll do it, and then see what comes from it. So I think you have to do that, don't you, sometimes?
Yeah, I think so. I think a lot of people might think we're mental for having that approach. But that's the beauty of people not being the same, isn't it? Is that we're driven by different things, we believe in different things, and therefore we do different things. If we were all the same, it'd be boring, and we'd never really get anywhere. So yeah, I'm cool with it. A lot of people, particularly those that are in my family and close around me, would probably be like, Jodie, what are you doing?
And has it got easier over the years with each year? Because is it the fifth year it's going to be this year?
It would be the fifth year, but we had to skip one because of
Right.
COVID. So it's been around for 5 years, but this is actually our fourth event this year. And yeah, it does get easier. It does get easier because, you learn every time. And, I think one thing, if you're doing something on this kind of scale that is so far out of your trained skill set, if you think about the job that I grew up doing, really it's got nothing to do with it. There's a few transferable skills, but on the whole I knew nothing about running a massive outdoor
Yeah.
event. So obviously it was a very steep learning curve at the beginning. So yeah, year on year you make mistakes, you learn things, you refine them, you implement something a little bit different. So you have to be good at that process. You have to be good at taking a few things on the chin and acknowledging when something doesn't work. It's really easy to get defensive about it and be unaccountable for it and try and blame something else or come up with all the excuses under the sun why something was like the way it was, when actually you just have to be able to face into it and go, that doesn't work, I made a mistake, so it needs to be different, what will work better, and then rinse and repeat. So having that, and that doesn't come easy. That's probably the hardest part of doing something like this, is you can get so stuck in the doing of things that you don't take the time to reflect, review, learn, and implement something a little bit differently. It's the boring bit of doing something
Yeah.
like this, but it's the most important bit. So yeah, year on year it gets easier. But then again, every year I go and put something new in it. I try and level it up. Like this year I've moved venue. So that puts some of the learning back to square one, because I now have to learn the lay of the land for this venue. I have to map it out differently. That comes with a few other different challenges. I won't bore you with all of those, but as you can imagine, it just knocks a few things back out of kilter. But yeah, on the whole, every year it gets
Yeah.
easier.
I guess you almost must start planning the next one as soon as the one's finished. So you haven't necessarily got an awful lot of time to do that reflection exercise. It's more on the job.
True. Yeah, so we deliver the festival in July every year. I take August off and do a lot of thinking and just jotting down notes, and have a meeting with the team and stuff like that. And then yes, the whole process starts again in September.
Yeah.
So it's a 10.5 month process of pulling it together. And yeah, 6 weeks of downtime afterwards.
Yeah.
That's it.
I mean, do you still enjoy it though? You still get the buzz from it?
Yeah, it's like, sometimes the logic, if you let your head make the decisions, the logic decisions would be, this isn't worth it, stop doing it, it's really hard, blah, blah, blah. But the heart, if you listen to your heart and let your heart lead and your heart rule, well, it's a passion project. I often say to people, I feel like I haven't actually got a choice. It's almost, if I translate it into a biblical context, the analogy would be that I'm Mary and God has told me I have to, have this child, and it's a calling. Yeah, it's like I have to do this. I haven't got a choice in the matter. I was sent here. I was put here to do this job, to deliver this thing. And so even if I wanted to, I find it very, very difficult to try and pull away from it. And with an event like this, like most festivals fail within the first 5 years. I believe me, we've come close a number of times. It's not easy to make money running a festival. Now, we are a not-for-profit, so we don't exist to have commercial gain, but we do have to make
it needs
money
to pay for itself.
for it to pay for itself. And obviously, it's got to pay for itself. And actually, it needs to pay me at some point. I run another business to pay my mortgage. And I think a lot of people think I'm making loads of money running this festival when I don't. I don't pay myself anything. So I work 10.5 months of the year on it for nothing, for the joy of seeing it come to life, which is fine, but yeah, most festivals take at least 5 years to make it to get to break even point and get over that line. So sometimes it's a case of, we're past the point of no return now. Why would you stop now?
Yeah.
We've done the hard yards. So now is the time to, now is almost the time to just think, it's like when a plane takes off, I feel like we've got to the point now where the seatbelt signs are just about to go off. We're allowed to go up and go to the toilet in a minute.
You can cruise.
I feel like we're there. We're not quite cruising, but we're almost at the point that, we've done the steep climb, and the seatbelt signs are just about to be turned off so that we can get up and move about. So why would I land the plane now? Even though it's hard, it's a case of no. I've got big vision and big aspiration for this. There isn't a festival like it. There are other well-being festivals, but there isn't one that's purely for women and teen girls. And there certainly isn't anything in the north of this country. Most well-being festivals are down in the south anyway. I get asked all the time, when will you do this event in the south? And I'm like, no way, Jose. Right? I'm a northern bird. We don't have enough of this stuff in the north. It is staying in the north. If you live in the south and you want to come, it's your turn to get on a train and come up here. So, but I do want to make it. I don't want anything the size of Glastonbury, but I'd love it the size of Creamfields. But for well-being and empowerment. So we've got a big job on our hands to grow it.
We've got big dreams. So I think with your resolve and tenacity, I think you'll make it happen. Yeah.
Hope so. Let's
Yeah.
hope it lasts.
So moving on.
Hope the tank doesn't run out of fuel.
Well, moving on to L then for laughter. I'm guessing laughter's probably a very important thing to keep
Yeah.
you going through your challenging moments, shall we say?
Yeah, definitely. Well, I think otherwise you'd go mad. But, you know, just as a human being, I think that's always been a big value of mine. It's like, what is the point in living if you're not going to have joy and laughter? I've always had it as a bit of, I used to say it quite often that what it was one of my personal KPIs. How many times have I laughed
Oh, right.
today? You know, because actually, yeah, I used to think, right, you know, at night, that's personal KPI, needs to have at least 3 good belly laughs a day. Because, you know, what's for me, what's the point in life if you're not having a really good time and it's not making you happy and giving you joy? And, you know, if you get to the site, which obviously you know all of this, but when you start to look at the science behind laughing, you know, it's so good for you, isn't it? It's so good for your physical well-being, for the chemistry in your body in terms of like the chemicals it releases, that yeah, it makes it absolutely essential for me. My life's rubbish if I've not got laughter and joy
Yeah,
in it.
that's great. I love the fact that you had it as a KPI, because that might sound a bit too prescriptive, but I think actually that's a really good way of making sure that you're keeping a check on it, because I think sometimes you forget that you might not have laughed for 2 days and you're like, oh, hang on, what's going on here? And that's maybe an indicator of something else underlying it as well.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's not that I would force it to think, oh, I've only had 2 laughs today, I've still got 1 to get in the tank. But I would know, I'd be like, that, that's why I feel a little bit
Yeah.
flat. I feel a bit flat because today's not been fun. Today has not been fun. I haven't had a giggle. No one's shown me a funny video that's made me laugh my head off. You know, I might even then say, like, one of the things that I used to do religiously, I don't so much now because I've removed the TV out my bedroom. But every night I would go to bed at 10 o'clock, and for half an hour I would watch an episode of Mock the Week on
Right.
Dave, because I would look. I find that program so funny, and I like to have that giggle before I went to bed. That was the state that I liked to fall asleep in, rather than worrying about the day or ruminating on things. I thought, I'm having a bit of comedy in my life before I go to sleep. And that was my ritual for years and years and years. I've watched those episodes over and over and over again. But it was important for me that that was the last thing in my
Yeah.
day. Was that a
I love
laugh?
that. That's You're the first person to say that you've actually like scheduled some laughter in before bedtime to put you in a good state to go to sleep in. I really like that.
Yeah. Do you know what? You've made me think I could do with like putting some of that back in, but I don't want a TV in my room
No.
anymore. I've kind of stopped watching TV quite like even just in, you know, don't really watch TV in the lounge anymore. But it was a big thing taking the TV out of the bedroom. But yeah, I'm sure there's plenty of alternative ways for me to get in a
Yeah.
quick giggle
Well, I was going
before
to say,
bedtime.
what makes you laugh? Like, do you watch any comedy now, or live comedy, or doesn't sound like you might have time?
Yeah, but I do. Do you know what? I was due to go to Peter Kay's gig in Manchester last week, but because the venue isn't ready, it's been
Yeah.
bumped a month. But you know, so I love comedy like Peter Kay. I love all kind of comedy. I love Mickey Flanagan. You know, I love everyone who's kind of been on Mock the Week. But do you know what makes me laugh the most? This is probably a bit mean, really. I love seeing grown-ups fall over.
Yeah.
So I love things like you. I love things like You've Been
Yeah.
Framed. I could watch episodes of You've Been Framed back to back, or you know, most of my social media feed is full of daft animal videos or videos of people falling over, because that's the type of stuff that makes me
Yeah.
cry laughing.
You're not the
I just
first
love
person
it. I
to have
love
said
it, and I
that.
know it's a bit. I know I probably shouldn't laugh at people falling over, but it really gets me. I
Yeah.
love it. So
It's worse
yeah.
though when you see someone fall over in real life and then you've got to try and stifle your laughter because you're like, oh, that because you feel their embarrassment, and then because as a person who falls over quite a lot, not so much now, stop drinking, but not sure what the correlation is there. But yeah, you see it in real life and you're like, oh, that was really funny, but I can't laugh. And then that makes you laugh more when you can't laugh.
I know it's that thing where I have one hand to try and hold my lips together, and the other hand has to go in between my legs to stop myself
Yeah,
from weeing.
yeah, get into that age.
And I know that sounds terrible. I'm sure that will resonate with lots and lots of people. It was funny. We had some family to stay with us a couple of weeks ago. They'd come down from Scotland. My husband's family's Scottish. We took them out for a walk in the woods, and it got quite muddy. So a few of them tried to take a shortcut down a steep incline, and one of the women fell. She was trying to hold onto a tree, and the tree snapped, and she fell. And it was funny. We all fell about laughing our heads off. We were laughing that much we couldn't help but get up off the floor. Anyway, she was really bad that night. Really, her back was really sore. She actually went to the hospital the next day, and she's fractured her spine in 3
Oh my
places.
God.
And I feel really bad for laughing now, but we still laugh.
Well, you weren't to know in the circumstances here, but oh God.
We,
Oh dear. So moving swiftly on from that then, do you have a favourite joke other than people falling over?
oh, Mary.
If I put you on the spot now.
Oh, do you know what? Tell you what, I'm rubbish with jokes. I'm rubbish at telling them. I always end up giving the punchline away before I'm supposed to. And 9 times out of 10, I don't get jokes that other people tell me.
Okay.
I can't even think of one. Do you know what? I might come back with one in a bit. While we're chatting, if I think of one, I might come back
well,
with
your
a
story
in a bit.
count as your
Before we
joke.
finish, I'll be like, I've got.
So that brings us on to the eye for inspiration then. So where have you got your inspiration from in life, or who?
Oh, lots of different places, really. Yeah, there's not kind of one place. I kind of quite often I get inspired from places of adversity rather than examples of brilliance. Does that make sense?
Well, that's kind of what the podcast is about.
When I see, yeah, it's like I don't, I'm never really inspired by famous people or public figures or people who've written books. That's not the stuff that floats me boat and turns me on and makes me inspired in that kind of way. I'm usually inspired by things that are quite humble, quite vulnerable, for when things are, not particularly going well. So, over the past kind of couple of years, because of my passion for, empowerment for women and girls and being a mum to 3 teenage girls, I've done a lot of work with a social enterprise called Girls Out Loud, and that massively inspires me because that gives me the opportunity to go into schools and understand what it's like to be a teenage girl in this day and age. Even though I've got my own teenage kids, it's different when you're their mum, isn't it? I go and meet some other children. They tell you different things. You see different things, and understanding the challenge that they face now. Most mums and dads of teen girls don't know what they face. This is what's inspired me. So we talk about 3 game changers for teenage girls. They've still got all the challenges that we had when we were growing up, by the way. But there's 3 big ones that they face now. The first one is smart technology. That won't be news to anybody. But what will be news is, it's this always on approach to life. So what I mean by that is, let's say you're getting bullied, right? And, we used to get bullied when we were younger. But when you went home from school, bullying stopped until tomorrow. Now it ramps up. it gets worse. It gets worse because it goes onto the mobile phone after school. So that's an issue. The other thing I find is when I spend time with them, I say to them all, right, can everybody go into their settings and tell me what their average screen time is? What do you reckon a teenage girl's average screen time is? How many hours a day?
Well, going off my personal experience with my teenagers, I know it's probably upwards of 5 hours.
5. They're all in double
Double
figures,
figures.
all
Yeah.
of them. And I find that the average was about 13 or 14 hours a day. Some of them are at like 16 hours a day, Mary.
Oh my God.
So if they're in school for 6 hours and they're online for 16 hours a day, what are they not doing?
Not sleeping.
They're not going to bed, right? And a teenage girl who is going through puberty, who's not getting any sleep, is not a nice person to be around. She's not a successful girl. She's not a happy girl. She's a troubled girl. You know, she's having difficult relationships. She's all over the place because her hormones are going haywire because she's not getting any sleep. She's not eating properly. You know what it's like, and sleep is kind of the fundamental like foundation of all hormonal balance. And when you're really hormonal anyway, which, you know, comes back to bite us at my age, it's hard, right? So no wonder they're struggling. They're not sleeping, teenage girls. They're online till 2-3 o'clock in the morning on Snapchat. Second game changer is reality TV. So I don't have to say Love Island. I say reality TV, it's not always on TV, right? But for say Love Island to you, you know what I mean. Now, the important thing about this is it's not that they're watching a program, it's what it teaches them. It teaches them that everything has to be bigger hair, bigger eyebrows, bigger eyelashes, bigger teeth, bigger lips, bigger boobs, bigger bum. You see what I mean? You know, and the other thing it teaches them is that they trade sex for power. Everything is about the boy. You must do whatever it takes to get the boy. Notice how it's always that way round. The girl's chasing the boy. You know, that's the prize, to get the boy. And if all else fails and your life's going to part, buy something because that's going to make you feel better. You know, and it's like, what? Right, we can be doing without them teaching them this. And then the third game changer that affects girls today is porn. So probably not the word you're expecting me to say. Apologies to anyone if that is alarming, but I don't know whether you or your listeners have looked at much porn lately. I have. I've checked it out because I felt it important to do so. And, you know, that's moved on a lot. We've taken porn off the top shelf. It's not a magazine up on the high rows of a newsagents anymore. You know, majority of boys are regularly watching porn by the time they're 11. The way women's bodies are represented in porn, they don't look like my body, which I suppose they look like your body either. They look like Barbie dolls. You know, they're not representative of what we look like. And then what happens is, you know, boys are now asking girls for nudes. They're pressured into sending them because if they don't, they're going to get dumped and the lad's going to move on to the next girl. But when she sends the nude, because she doesn't look anything like the girls in the porn movies, that image gets shared and then she is humiliated to the point that she self-harms. And then we've got a young girl who's self-harming. On top of that, porn has got quite violent, and boys now just think that it's absolutely okay to strangle a girl and that is what she wants. So it doesn't teach them anything about consent, intimacy, what a real relationship means. And girls are going along with this because they think that is what they have to do. So if anything inspires me, Mary, it's that.
Well, that's very powerful. And as you say, I don't think a lot of parents are aware of that. I mean, personally, we've always put time limits on the kids so that everything switches off at 10:30 or 11 o'clock, so they can't actually go on anything. And that's caused massive rows. Massive rows. Why have I got time limits? And now we're just coming to the other side of them starting to understand why. Not so much my son, because he's still a bit younger, but my daughter's like, oh, I can see why you did that, and I'm actually really grateful now. But it would have been easy to give in and go, oh, I can't be bothered with the row. just, but I think we really, as parents, do need to keep a very close eye on what's going on. Well, I know from myself how much time I spend on my phone, and I'll justify that by saying, well, I'm doing my social media for Building Bliss, or I'm sharing my comedy, but then it's still 2-3 hours staring at your screen. So, and they model off us, don't they? So I guess we've got to take some steps as well to display a better role model for that.
Absolutely. I meet a lot of parents that when I share that with them, they're like, oh my God, don't tell me this. I don't want to know. And I'm like, you've got to
Definitely.
know. Because if you don't know, then you can't help them navigate this. I mean, can you stop them from seeing this? Probably not. But can you have a conversation with them about it and help to educate them about what's appropriate, what's not? And I say this as much to parents of boys as I do to parents of girls. Watch what you let your son do, or how you let him speak to you, how you let him treat you. I've got friends who've got teenage sons, and their sons speak to them like crap. And I say to my friends, you need to get a handle on that, because you are setting them up for how they're going to have a relationship when they grow up. And that doesn't bode well for an equal relationship with mutual respect and, all of that kind of stuff. So this is as much to parents as boys as it is to parents of girls. We've got to be having these conversations with them to help them navigate this. It's not just about stopping them from being online, because they'll find a way.
Yeah.
They'll find a way to see it, and they'll find a way to engage
Yeah.
with it. It's talking to them and helping them see that the consequences and what's real and what's not. I don't know if you get this, Mary, with your kids, but because of AI, my kids can't tell what's real and what's not. Even at 18, my 18-year-old will show me something and go, oh, Mum, look at this. And I'll be like, that's not real, hon. And she's like, yeah, it is. Yeah, it is. I'm like, it isn't. It's fake. It's such a good fake. And so I feel sorry for them, because they can't figure that stuff out. Sometimes I can't figure it out either, by the way. But, at least I look at things skeptically to go, how real is that image? How real is that video? Blah, 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 blah. How fake is that news?
Yeah. Absolutely, because I think
sorry, I get a bit soapbox.
No, I agree, because I think a lot of the rows we have are I've seen this on TikTok. I'll put it in inverted commas. I've seen this on TikTok. I was like, that doesn't mean it's true. Like, whether I don't, like you say, some news, something that someone's done. I was like, it doesn't mean it's true just because you've seen it on a social media site. And I think, as you say, AI is terrifying. Obviously, it can help us in lots of ways, but I heard the other day that there's an AI app now where you can upload all the messages you had with an ex-partner, and then you can continue the relationship with them, even when if you've been dumped or you finish with them, and the AI will learn how you communicated, and then you continue a relationship with them in AI. And I'm like,
I mean, how toxic is that, and how bad is that for people's mental health? That's not good, is it? It really is good. And then another one I heard, I was listening to Diary of a CEO the other day, Stephen Bartlett's podcast. And again, they were talking on there about AI being able to, you can give it 15 seconds of your voice now, and it will just learn to talk like you, which means then you could just create messages of anyone's voice and be like, they said that. Can you imagine kids doing this? They'll be like, well, they've said this about you, blah, blah. It's just opening up a massive can of worms of fakeness, and it worries me. But anyway,
well, just on that, we
that's what inspires me.
Well, I was just going to say, I asked you what inspires you, which is that, but then I think that is in the same way as how you will inspire others, and how you want to inspire others by getting those messages out there.
Yeah. I know they're not good news messages, and I do my best to keep them as buoyant as possible, but it's the reality of the situation that needs fire behind it to get people to take action.
Well, I think that's embodied in your pillars, which are inspiring, empowering, entertaining, educating, and liberating. And I think the liberating and educating fit
True.
together very well with that message, because you are liberating
Yeah.
teenage girls and teenagers generally of that sort of tyranny of everything's how you look. Your whole worth is wrapped
Hmm.
up in how you look.
Yeah. Yeah. What I am really pleased to see, it's like coming to the forefront now, is what they call, I don't know if you've heard of this, called the clean girl era. So actually, this is more for like the late teens, early 20s girls. They're really getting on the bus with, living a life that is much more natural, all about their well-being. They're not into drinking, they're not into drugs, they're not bothered about all these products and preening themselves so much. They want to live a holistic, healthy, have a strong sense of well-being life. And actually, I'm really inspired by that. I'm hoping that starts to come through to the younger girls and some older women, actually. So hopefully there's something in that this cohort of young women have actually woken up to what they've been subjected to through their teens and thought, I'm not buying into this anymore.
Yeah. I think,
So
well, I always did feel that we were
yeah.
going to reach a tipping point where it almost came full circle, where everyone started to
Yeah.
realize how much we're being monitored all the time. The devices are listening to us, the algorithms that are being compiled. And I think we will see a bit more of a return, I think, to a simpler, more off grid life as much as possible.
Yeah, let's hope so. Let's hope
Yeah.
so. I'm up for that anyway.
So moving on to the S for spark, I don't know if I even need to ask you this, because I think it's very clear where you get your spark from. But where do you get your spark from on a daily basis? So when you've got to get up out of bed and you think, right, I've got 17 meetings about the festival, I've got to find a tent, get the security butts in. How do you get up and get your spark going for the day?
I'm a really visual person. So, I paint pictures in my mind. And so, luckily, when I feel bogged down in tasks and jobs and day to day stuff like that, and actually that can be really overwhelming sometimes. Like, even this week, I've had a few things that have been like pulled, people drop out on stuff. And when 5 or 6 things like that happen in the same week, I'm like, oh no, it's all
The wheels
falling
are coming off.
apart. It's really easy to be dramatic about that and put the wheels are coming off. But actually, what gives me my spark and keeps that alive is I have got it like a movie in my mind as each year. So I know I've got previous years to go on, but this year, especially because we've moved venue, I've created this movie in my mind of exactly what this year's festival looks like, sounds like, smells like, feels like, all of that stuff. I'm a very sensory person in that sense. And that's what gives me spark. All I have to do is kind of have a minute. Sometimes I have to shut my eyes and I play that movie. And that's enough to reignite, to put the flint back in my lighter so that I've got some
Yeah.
spark to keep going. I have to dig deep. I do have to dig deep for that sometimes. It's not always easy, but I come back to that, and it's like the bits of feedback, like one of my favourite ones ever. And this was after the 2022 festival, actually, but it's been endorsed by lots of people. One woman wrote to me after the festival and she said, just this quote that it said, she went, I walked out of Womanifest feeling like a completely different woman than when I walked in. And I've had so many people say to me, this event changed my life. I made the biggest decisions ever for good after I came to this festival. People said I was on cloud 9. I felt like I could take on the world. It's all those kinds of things. They what give me spark.
Yeah. I mean, that is a
All I
brilliant
have to remember
legacy, isn't
them
it?
And that's, you know,
to hear that from people. But
yeah.
that's
If somebody goes to something for a weekend or a day and they walk out feeling like a different woman than when they walked in, I'm like, boom, job
yeah,
done.
that you've achieved your goal. Yeah.
Yeah.
So on your mind movies
Mm,
thing, is that a
yeah.
technique that you've taught yourself or learned, or have you always been like that growing up?
Just just always been like that. I was proper little, I had a wild imagination as a kid. You know, I had imaginary friends and all kinds of stuff like that. And I can still picture my imaginary friends now. Like I know where I was when I would talk to them. You know, I can see I can still play them all as
Mm,
movies. So no, I just think it's something that I've just always
yeah.
had. You know, that a dream. I've always been a dreamer. I think the thing is, I've just started to take action and turn dreams into reality. And once I did it once, I was like, oh my God, they don't have to just be dreams. You can actually do something with these. It is possible. And then that just made me believe in the art of the possible more, to the point that some people think, oh my God, she's lost the plot. They're like, you can't do that. And I'm like, yes, we can.
Yeah.
You know, I don't believe that anything is impossible anymore. I read a book once. Don't know if you've heard of it. It's by a woman called Marie Forleo. And the book's called Everything is Figure Outable.
I know, I've heard that one.
And I loved
Yeah.
it. Yeah, highly recommend you read it. She's an American lady. But yeah, the book is Everything is Figure Outable. And that was a great one for me as an adult to be like, right, well, nothing is a showstopper. I always believe there's an answer to everything. If I'm stuck, there is an answer. I just haven't found it yet.
Yeah.
Which gives me a bit of tenacity and a bit of grit to keep going. Whereas some people go, oh, well, there's no point. There's no point because it's impossible. We can't do anything about it. There's nothing we can do. I hate phrases like that. I hate somebody saying to me, there's nothing we can do. I'm like, what a load of
Yeah.
rubbish. There's always something you can do. It might not solve the whole puzzle, it might not fix the whole problem, but there is always something you can do that might just make it 1% better. And for me, 1%'s worth it.
Yeah.
So I would always do the 1%. I'd be like, fine, I'll do that. Because then if I do that, it changes things. 1% changes things. And therefore, new opportunities might come off that 1%. A new door might open. It might give me another option after that.
Yeah.
So I never, yeah, I don't know. But I think that that's down to a degree of tenacity and grit and perseverance. And what I noticed, I'm going to sound like I'm blowing smoke up my own backside now, and I don't mean it like that. But what I notice in these modern day times is people throw the towel in really easily. You know, like when kids go, you know, yes, your kids take them washing upstairs and like, oh, mum, that's
Yeah.
effort. You know, they're like effort in it. You know, nobody wants to do effort anymore. People want things to be easy. You know, it's like you can go on Amazon and order your loo roll by pressing a button next to your
Yeah.
toilet and it gets dropped off tomorrow. You know, I can go on the Morrison's website, there are other supermarkets, and order Prosecco and it can be on my doorstep in 20 minutes. I didn't have to leave the house. You don't have to put in any effort, but that means for the things that really matter, nobody can be bothered to do hard stuff or try and figure things out. We just want ease,
Mm,
and that makes me sad.
yeah. I really resonate with that.
I like doing hard things.
Yeah. And I think it is,
I like doing hard things. I like doing hard
yeah.
work.
And if we go back to that whole social media thing, it's like it's always like lose 20 pounds in 1 week or do this one hack, and
Yeah,
nothing's ever like, well, actually, if you just ate well and exercised and moved a bit, you'd just be healthier overall. And that's boring, isn't it? And
yeah,
requires effort, as you say. So yeah.
yeah. I mean, don't get me wrong, right? I am partial to a bit of instant gratification. You know, the example I always use with that is, you know, if you're decorating at home, I never want to do the edges. I only want to do the rollering.
Yeah.
Because the edges mean I have to tape everywhere up first, and then I have to be really careful. You know, so you can spend hours and you don't see that much return for the time you've put
Yeah.
in. Whereas if you hand me the roller and I get to do the big bit in the middle, after 10 minutes, I've painted
Yeah.
loads. So I get it, and I do enjoy instant gratification. But when it really comes down to the crunch on the things that matter most to me, I know that you've got to go the hard yard
Yeah.
sometimes.
And I think perhaps you having that clear vision, though, because, visualization, as we know now, I think we know more than ever about it, about how powerful it is for manifesting, as it feeds into the Womanifest. So I think, yeah, having that, it must be really great to be able to tap into that visual image and keep your spark going.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
it, definitely.
So moving on to success, then,
Mm,
what does success look for
yeah,
you now, and has that changed over the years?
yeah, it has changed loads.
Mm.
Like, if we go back to the beginning of this conversation, um, when I talked about my corporate bunny career, when I was in the corporate rat race, then success was about like status, money, achieving things, you know, all of that stuff. And there's been times where it's nearly killed me. Whereas these days, success for me is about calm, peace, joy, like having fun, freedom, um, not being busy. Like, I tell you what I'm really sick of lately. Every time I speak to someone, they're like, oh, yeah. I say, how are you? They're like, yeah, I'm really busy. Or they'll say to me, are you really busy? And now I go, no, no. Because actually, 2024, I decided that one of my goals for this year was to not be busy. Don't want to be busy anymore because it's not good for me. That's not successful for me if I'm busy. And so I've removed a lot of things out of my life that were, because it was having a massive impact on my health.
Yeah.
Like, I actually ended up in hospital in February because I basically burnt out. I ended up having an autoimmune reaction where I woke up at 1 a.m. with my throat and my tongue swelling rapidly. So I got rushed to A&E. Everyone thought I'd had an allergic reaction to something that I'd eaten. Long story short, I had chronic fatigue. So I was stressed, burnt out, didn't know it. My body had been sending me signals for a long time and I'd been ignoring them. And so, the doctor said to me, he's like, if you don't slow down and take some things out, he said, you're going to end up with ME and you're going to be in a wheelchair. So is that going to be enough for you to take
Yeah,
some
that's a
action
pretty
now?
stark warning.
And it really upset me,
Yeah.
really upset me. Yeah. And so that's why my definition of success has really changed now. It had changed a bit anyway, but now I'm like, no, it can't be this anymore. So actually, it's about me not being busy. It's about me having time on my hands. It's about me, doing lovely things with lovely people. And it's not about being rich. I don't need to be rich. I just need to have enough money to live and do a few nice things here and
Yeah.
there. So yeah,
I like that because I think there is that busyness culture. It's the whole respect the grind and look at me. I've been in work since 4 a.m.
no,
I've already done 300 emails. Now I'm going to go and pump an hour in the gym. It's just crazy, but we celebrate that. And really, if you can be successful
yeah,
by doing less, surely that's the ultimate goal for anybody.
yeah, yeah, totally. I'm not into the busy badge of honor. In fact, now it's almost. I don't laugh at people who do the busy badge of honor, but in my head, I'm like, right, you know what? I feel for
Mm,
you because you've not yet made that realization that this isn't something to be proud of and wear with pride. Actually, now I see it. If I'm really busy and I am working from, I don't know, 6 a.m. to 8 p.m., what that really says is I'm not very efficient and I'm not very effective.
mm, yeah, time management.
I'm making bad decisions. I'm making bad decisions if that's the case. So it is not a good reflection of me. And that took me a while to get my head around and get used to, but I'm into it now. I'm into it.
I love that. I think that's a really important message as well, that hopefully a lot of people will take on board.
Fingers crossed. So I think there's a few people heading for burnout. I see it now, like they've got like a flashing light on their head. I can spot them a mile off.
I think it's a massive problem. It's the sort of, well, I think we've listened to the same Diary of a CEO episode, because he was saying that they say that COVID was the biggest pandemic that we had, and he said it's not, it's stress, and it's going to affect 80 to 90% of the population.
Mo's episode.
So hopefully.
Yeah, that really long one. It's 2 hours.
Yeah, well worth it though. Well worth it.
Yeah.
Obviously, stay listening to this podcast before you go and check that one out.
Of course.
Just as much wisdom here, if not more. So our final question then is, I'm going to ask you, what young daydreamer Jodie would say if you could see you now?
She would say, don't, be bold, be brave. Don't be the word fear. I want to say the word fear. I think she was young Jodie was quite fearful. And actually, I would say keep hold of that wild imagination, let it thrive, be curious, dream big, go after all of those things. Don't let this world taint you in that way. It robs us of our curiosity, it robs us of our imagination as we grow older. And I would tell her to hold on tight to that.
Love that. That needs putting in a frame somewhere. Absolutely love that. Well, thank you so much for being a guest today. Do you want to just give us a bit of a Jen on where people can get tickets for Womanifest? I think there's a few still left, isn't there?
Yeah. Yes. So literally you can head to womanifest.co.uk. Top of the page, obviously there's a page for tickets. Just head on over there. If you're quick, in the next couple of weeks, then you might still get a tier 2 ticket. We've released the tickets in tiers because we like to reward people who are fast action takers. So if you were quick, you get the cheaper tickets. They are all the same kind of ticket, but the tier 1 tickets, they've all gone now. They were the cheapest ones. But we've still got some tier 2 ones left at £89 for the weekend, which is an absolute steal and a bargain. After that, they go to £99 for the weekend after that. So nice and easy. Womanifest.co.uk and just hit the ticket.
Right. Well, I should say Building Bliss are sponsoring the Wellbeing Tent this year, which is very exciting. Because, I'll be putting on a Find Your Funny workshop on Saturday, so people can come and try their hand at some stand-up, and then a Find Your Bliss workshop on the Sunday. So when we're all feeling a bit more chilled, we've probably had a bit of a wild night on the Saturday, and then everyone can come and get some chill and some bliss on the Sunday. But really looking forward to it. So thanks very much for being a guest, and have a great weekend.